Hey, Thomas.
Hello.
So what's cooking?
So I always got a lot cooking, but I just wanted to make the big announcement. We've been talking true crime and serial killers for so long that I actually, on July 12th and 13th in Connecticut, the Connecticut Paracon, we've been running it for the last few years. This year, we're adding true crime to it. It's like peanut
What?
butter. Yeah, it's like peanut butter and jelly. You know that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you think about it, Amityville, DeFeo murder, that true crime turns into a haunting. So you got the paranormal. Lizzie Borden house, the Basilica Axe murder house. It's just part of our history. And I love history, you know that.
Oh, yeah.
Paranormal, it's like all my favorite things all in one. And I'm so excited for everybody to join us this year, especially in the summer. It's going to be in the brass city of Waterbury, Connecticut, which is the center of
Sweet.
Connecticut. So it's going to be very exciting. And I can't wait to talk about the other place that had true crime and turned into a haunted place, too, that we're going to talk about tonight.
That sounds great. But let's
Yeah.
bring the others on. I just wanted you to be able to talk about your Paracon, and let's
Yes.
bring my brother Blaine,
Yes.
big
What's going
man
on, y'all?
in the house. Here's my
I'm
sis in the house.
all right. Let me see
Oh
if they'll
my
let me share
God.
this video with everybody. This
Right.
Yep.
was, if I get it to work. Hold on. Let's see.
Hold on. Let's
Present.
make sure we got it. Let's wait just a little bit.
Hey,
Let's
Pam.
let a few more people join. Thank
There
you,
you go. Give
Pam,
them a
for
couple minutes.
joining. I
Sean,
appreciate it. Hey, Sean, my friend. Oh,
Sean.
my goodness. It's so good to see our tribe talking to everybody. Yeah, let's wait just a little bit, okay? Because I want to make sure everybody sees it. And it's one of these things where y'all not going to believe this. I want you to be able to have your look. I'm ready. Blaine, you see this?
Yeah.
Remember we talked about it. It says drink and be scary.
Mhm.
Wait,
And
wait.
I
so,
like that.
This
yes,
is what we're going to do tonight.
down that rabbit hole
Rabbit
again.
hole. There
Yeah.
you
That's
go.
us.
We're going there.
So, Blaine, tell everybody about Madame was it LaLaurie?
LaLaurie.
There she is.
Hi,
Hey,
Matt.
Matt. Oh,
Okay.
Luna, here's your
Let
funny.
voice.
me just
Here she
read.
is.
Hello,
Oh,
Luna.
You cannot have rum. No, ma'am. You see this, right?
I saw that.
She's a
Okay.
pirate dog.
You're so bad.
Wants the rum.
Here's a little information on Madame LaLaurie. LaLaurie, sorry. Treatment of the people she enslaved between 1831 and 1834 vary. Harriet Martineau, writing in 1838, recounting tales told to her by New Orleans residents during her 1836 visit, claimed that the enslaved people of LaLaurie were observed to be singularly haggard and wretched when compared to other enslaved individuals. However, at least in public appearance, LaLaurie was seen to be generally polite to black people and sources of health for those she enslaved. She was good outside, but get her in the house, she was a total biatch.
Yeah. So tell them about the Bacardi part.
Okay,
I was showing them my drink, you know?
yeah, she is actually a part of the Bacardi family, and her money came from the Bacardi, not the rum, but the sugar canes before they started making rum. They figured out they could make more money selling rum than they could sugar. So, and that's why I used to have Bacardi to this day. I actually went to school with two Bacardi boys in Alabama. Their
Really?
dad the dad could have bought the school 100 times over. They were at school there on a tennis scholarship and neither played tennis. That's how rich people get ahead. But hey, I never went without Bacardi while we were there. I'll tell you. But okay, between 1830, there's a funeral registers between 1830 and 1834 document the death of 12 enslaved people at the Royal Street Mansion. Okay, these deaths include a woman named Bonnie, a cook and laundress, and her four children, Juliet, Florence, Jules, and May. Okay. She
I'm
was
glad you got that. I couldn't get the names for some reason today.
She was chained to the stove,
Yeah.
which she
Her
could leave,
cook.
and
Yeah.
she tried to she tried to she tried to attempt suicide by catching the house on fire because what would happen if she didn't cook everything like Laurie wanted it, she would beat her children. She would flay them. And if you don't know what flaying is, it is a whip with several different strands on it. Sometimes it had sharp pieces of metal. Sometimes it had bone in it. But it would rip the flesh clean off of you. And
you know what it was called?
No.
It was
Cat
called
of nine
no.
tails.
It was called the cat's tongue.
Cat's tongue. That's right.
Remember, the cat's got your tongue and all that. So
Yeah.
there's a word origin behind that. It was a whip that had all the little parts on it. So, yeah.
Okay, this
So
is the
nasty, y'all.
this is the
Oh my God.
this is the part that just blows my mind. Is she had to free 9 of her enslaved people, turned right around and bought them for less than she paid for them the first time. Yeah, that's all they did is took them away from
Yeah,
her.
she
Bought them right
got
back.
one of her family members when
Yeah.
they bought them for. So here's the PowerPoint about Madame LaLaurie. Okay,
LaLaurie.
this woman.
LaLaurie.
Okay, so Madame LaLaurie was born Marie Delphine McCarty. Okay, she was a wealthy Creole lady. And there's the house on 1140 Rural Street in New Orleans. That's where she did all of her mess. In 1834, it caught fire. An enslaved woman set it on fire, the poor thing. And in 1834, that's when the judge said, we've got to go in there. You've got your enslaved people in there, and who knows who else. We're going in. And the doctor, LaLaurie, said, you don't just come to people's homes and say you're going in. And they said, we're breaking the door down and we are going in. And buddy, when they did, that's when shit hit the fan for real. All right. Let's see if I can get this thing to play. All right. I did that one already. Dr. Louis Nicholas LaLaurie. There's her home. Isn't it beautiful?
Well, the original house burned down. That was what was rebuilt.
So they were chained in the attic.
Oh yeah, big time.
And on the top, they were tortured, mutilated, and starved. They were found mutilated, suspended by their necks with limbs stretched and torn. There was a lady wearing one of those metal collars, and she was barely able to even walk in it. She was an older lady. All right, so I'm going to stop it there. I tried to take it out as far as I could transitioning. Did you pick up on how many people were buried in her yard?
Okay, I'll give you a story. I know at least one child, but there are many more. Yeah. There was a 12-year-old child that, to get away from being beat, actually jumped off the roof and died on the property. They just buried her right there in the yard. When they went back to the house after the LaLauries fled to France, they found at least 17 more bodies. And they don't know how many others were just put out in the swamp for the alligators to eat. How many were put in the river? They don't know.
No. So after the fire started, thank God the fire started, and these people were removed. There were, I think it was 11. I think it was 11 people that she was torturing. Okay. And there was one lady that had her bones broken so many times, and they were set in peculiar ways that they called her the human crab. I don't know how in the world she would recover from that. But I know that you guys are able to talk more about the atrocities of Madame LaLaurie, but she was chasing this little girl named Leah, who was mulatto, and instead of being caught and tortured, she ran right out the window and plummeted down. Actually, it was I've read one saying that she went off the roof.
She went off the roof, yes.
Yeah.
Got under the roof and was running across the roof
and just leapt to her death. That was more merciful than what was coming to her.
Yeah. Because she'd already been through that torture before many times. And it's either, okay, do I want to go through that again? Or is just death more better? So she chose death.
So Thomas, what have you got to talk about with her, this crazy woman?
Well, it's funny. There's me put on the psychology side of it. Just reading all that and trying to put some stuff together because we don't have the information like we do now with some of the serial killers. So you don't
True.
know in interviews and things like that. But from what I hear about her when she was out in public, she was very gracious and all that, all these parties. Like you would think she was the best, but then behind the scenes, she was vicious. I mean, sadistic in a way.
Yeah, she's very sadistic.
Yeah, but it comes to the thing where we think of narcissism. All right, a lot of us think of it in one way. There's actually 11 types of narcissism and all that. And one of the things is a communal narcissism, where it's somebody that is only about themselves, but they present themselves out in public as the perfect person.
Oh yeah.
But behind the scenes, they're, I don't say evil, but if you take that you could have dual narcissism, where she had malignant, which was more of the worst kind, where you're still able to be out in public, but you're more the sadistic kind. And also to the point where she almost presents as what we call the dark triad. I don't know if you ever heard that psychologically.
I
That is
have.
narcissism. That's psychopathy, Machiavellism, and all that. And we hear Machiavellian and how he would torture and all that, and those types of things. It's just she almost fits that criteria, but can we really pinpoint it? No, I don't have enough information.
No.
But from what we found, it really does follow that line, and that gives us why she might have been the way she was. When you're wealthy like that, you think it's you against everybody else sometimes. And
well, you know what she'd do too, Thomas? To divert attention away from her, she had an overseer that basically did everything she said to do. So she told him.
The butler was the one that did it.
Yeah,
so he was implicated also.
Yeah. But I think didn't he escape too when they fled? Now,
they left him to hold the bag. So
really? I thought, who was the one that drove her away?
Her husband. Let me tell you this.
Dr. LaLaurie and Delphine, and they got on a boat up the Pontchartrain and all that, and escaped out and over to France. So
they lived out their life in Paris, and she never got to see her beloved New Orleans again. But this is the funny part. All right, this is during when the enslaved woman at the stove started the fire. Well, this is the funny thing. Because she was rich, the fire department would show up first. But since she was wealthy, it took the cops a while to get down there. So she had enough to pack bags for her and her family, go out a side gate, get in their carriage, go right up to the Mississippi River, and get on a boat. And they took a boat from there to New York, and they took a passage over to France, to Paris.
That's the thing is, back in those days, you can't put out an APB. Travel didn't go fast enough to be able to catch somebody like that. And once you're out, she's over in France, living out the rest of her life. But there is rumor that she always wanted to go back, but her kids told her. She had 5 kids, 1 from her first marriage, 4 from her second. And she didn't have any with Dr. LaLaurie because she was like 10, 15 years older than him at the time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they think that she was reinterred and then brought and buried in New Orleans. And there's supposedly a plaque there that's kind of worn away a little bit, but they think that's what happened. So.
Well, one of the things I heard too, you're right. She was brought back to New Orleans to be buried. Because what could they do to her? She's dead. And her family had money and probably had several plots of grave sites for them to be put in when they died anyway. So, and back in those days, it's like you slip the undertaker a couple of bucks. Hell yeah, he'll bury you for you. Put you right in your plot you already paid for.
Yeah. But one of the things I want to blow your guys' mind with.
Please do.
Remember when we talked about, yellow journalism?
Yeah.
Holmes, how things were exaggerated. I think the same thing happened here. because when people started telling stories about how sadistic she was sadistic, but I think they started telling stories and intertwining from history. You guys know who Elizabeth Báthory is?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. She was a Hungarian duchess, and she's responsible for unaliving 650 young women. And her persona was basically used as one of the character references for the original Dracula, along with Vlad the Impaler, because she would bathe in the blood, wanting to look young again.
Yes. Yes.
They also used her persona for the witch in like Snow White and those types of things when they wrote that. Now, it was proven that Elizabeth Báthory had a torture chamber. She would drill holes into these torture them into their heads, but break the bones and reset them in odd ways. So this is back in the 1600s. So what is the chances that Madame LaLaurie, Delphine, would do the same exact thing, or is it somebody grabbing from history and trying to put it on her? Or was she saying, hey, I'm going to do the same thing I saw in a history book or whatever and do the same thing? But what are the chances? Two different, women. She grabbed something some sadistic women did back in the 1600s, and they're
Yeah.
doing it now in 1800s or whatever. It makes no sense. So I really don't think that was part of the sadism that she had. I know she beat these enslaved people pretty badly, and
Yes, she did.
and
Tortured
to
them.
the point where somebody would jump off a roof to get away from it. Somebody would, rather burn alive and light the house on fire where they're handcuffed to a stove. So, it's nuts. And, a wealthy person and a lot that's going on in our world now with some of the wealthy people have been doing, and trafficking and things like that, just because you have money, some of these people are just got a screw loose, and the things
Yeah.
that they do to people that just want to live and make a living. So, and it's crazy, and it
Yeah, it
disappoints
is.
me. But history can't repeat itself, so that's why we talk about it on this show. So,
Yeah. Well, I know that there were 12 bodies that were pulled out of the house. That 12 we know of, she had she either killed or had her overseer killed, but she was involved in the whole thing. So
Oh, yeah.
no telling how many others that she got away with. And no, who's to say she didn't keep doing the same thing when she was in Paris?
That's
Because
what I was wondering.
she had indentured servants. She had enslaved people there too.
yeah, she literally left the butler there to hold the bag. And then a mob came to the house when the fire was going on. Yeah, it burned in the fire, but this mob like ripped the rest of the house apart.
They
But you
took
guys know,
everything that wasn't tied down. They
yeah, but
left. They
you
left
know in the
nothing but the
supernatural
walls.
world.
Yeah.
In the supernatural world, you can rip it all down, but the energy's going to stay there, even with the new
Mm-hmm.
build of it that happened years later when they rebuilt on the mansion up. So.
Yeah. And this is the funny part now that Nicolas Cage owns the property now.
No,
Oh,
he
he doesn't anymore.
He already got
foreclosed.
foreclosed on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he bought it in 2007, and 2 years later foreclosed in 2009.
Oh, that's what he owed, like
That's
100.
contributing to the curse theory that the home is cursed.
Oh yeah,
But
his,
let
Oh,
me,
true.
his family had some very haunting experiences, and I don't think they wanted to be there anymore. So
Yeah.
I
They
think he just
lasted
let the
4
house
days.
go. So
Sorry about that.
Lasted 4 days.
yeah.
4 days in the house.
Mhm.
So
I
I'm
thought he
going to
went
go
back
back
and
to
bought it back
this.
after he foreclosed on it. But
I don't know. So I don't know
Well,
exactly
that's the
why.
thing. So there's some things that, like the slave collar that this old lady was
right.
wearing, old lady who could barely walk to start with,
Mhm.
and she's wearing a heavy iron collar.
Mhm.
And when they got it off of her, I'm sure that was quite the relief. She could finally lay down.
Oh gosh.
Because this thing, it jutted out. There's no way to lay down. There's no way to get comfortable. And there's no need in her torturing a little old lady like that. I mean, she was in her last days. And there were, let's see, there were 12 funerals that were recorded on the property.
Yep.
And from a period of, I think it was about 10 or 11 years. But there were a lot more bodies and remains found than were funerals.
Oh yeah.
And one being the little girl. There were several pieces of limbs which contributed to, the torture.
Yeah.
But when the fire happened and they were rescued out of there, one of the people that they rescued, one of the slaves that had been tortured, did not live. It was just like 5 days after the fire, that person expired.
Well, this too, as those ones that got out there, they put them in the jail where people could come by and gawk at them. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, that's just, oh, me. This messes me up so bad. It makes me want to, anyway.
Oh.
Okay, so let me get back to my little hickey. Go ahead, Blaine.
Okay, I did find out when we were on the tour that the owner wants to turn it into a bed and breakfast where you can rent it and do investigations.
We're going.
Ooh,
Oh yeah, we're going. Once I find out it's true, we'll find out who owns that place and see how we can book the whole place. We'll fill it up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We've got people in our class that want to do that, so we need to keep an eye out. Here's the little PowerPoint again. All right, so we talked about. Well, I can't do it that way. I'll just have to wait. It's not like PowerPoint. Sometimes it wants to do right, and sometimes it doesn't. All right, so there's the house, infamous site of the atrocities that she did. Okay, the fire, 1834, freed the people and exposed Madame LaLaurie. All right, so the judge said, okay, break it down. And there were women found in heavy iron collars, things like that. She fled New Orleans and went to Paris to live out the remainder of her life. Okay, there were bones excavated from the courtyard. The little girl's body was found buried. And over time, the myth started. So we don't really know what is true about it, but that's what she looked like. She doesn't look at all like Kathy Bates. And that's an example, a very horrible example of, how these cats' tongues would do. All right. So she was found guilty of illegal cruelty and was forced to forfeit 9 of her. That's the slide that I need right there, because it talks about Nicolas Cage losing the LaLaurie mansion. And it also,
I'm reading it now too.
Okay, good.
He called it ghost front property.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And
So
he actually has a grave site there for him when he dies in New Orleans. Already prepaid for.
Nicolas Cage has an obsession with vampires and Dracula and stuff like that. So that's almost part of it. The New Orleans, the vampire scene, that house being haunted was his attraction for it.
Did you see the videos of Roseanne Barr talking about straight up vampires and how they stay young by drinking the blood and eating human flesh? I was thinking, okay, she's truly crazy.
Yeah.
But today I'm looking on my phone, just doing my thing, and it pops up that human remains were found in hot dogs recently.
Oh, wouldn't surprise me.
Best-selling hot dogs.
Yeah.
So,
They have a hot dog stand on every freaking corner in the French Quarter.
What was the brand name of those hot dogs? Was that Soylent and Green?
Yeah.
And Lee, next time I say I don't eat hot dogs, you don't give me the look, okay?
I'm not giving you no kind of look.
And here's another thing, too.
Hot dudes, not hot dogs.
where the LaLaurie house is, less than a block away, they had a gentleman called the Count that lived in this house. And a little girl, 14-year-old girl, escaped from him, ran down to the police station, and they thought, okay, because it's a rich person, we're not going to bother him that much. Took the time to get down there. When they did get there, there was a gentleman that opened the door, and it wasn't the Count. He said, I don't know who this man is, but he's never lived here. But people would see him at night coming out of that house.
Blaine, play the video.
Oh, here we go. Hopefully, let me play it.
It's been 30 minutes, so we should have maximum viewers right now. And Shane's saying, yeah, hot dogs have been around for a long time now, but that information has too. But it was right there, and it pissed me off. I'm like, yuckity yuck. No way.
One reason I don't eat them.
Hey, okay, I'm trying to talk. Sorry, it won't let me pull it over from Facebook, and I don't know how to copy it to send it as a freaking email.
Wasn't it Roosevelt? I think it was Roosevelt that introduced hot dogs to the British king and queen or whatever at the time. They never had them. They had them and all that, brought them back to Great Britain. So that's a little piece of history.
That's so scary. I'm trying to find it too, Blaine.
Which one is it, guys? I've got them.
I sent you the one. It's the one that the lady's talking in the black dress.
She's standing and looking like this and doing.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Let me see if I'm gonna see if I can get it.
Thank you, Gwen.
Look,
all right. Mine's gonna blink out on me, so I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. And the way the lady's facing, the way she's facing us, to her right is where the LaLaurie mansion was, and that's what the new mansion looks like.
I got it.
You got it?
If I can get shared screens to work, you guys let me know if you can hear it, okay? Present. Share screens. Yes, let's share screens. No, not there. Yes, there. Here we go. Can you see it?
Yeah, make it bigger. There we go. Let it play.
2 doors down, we pointed out to you afterwards because they just weren't allowed to shoot here. So, LaLaurie was infamous for her beauty, for her charm, for her parties, and for the horrible, horrible way that she treated her enslaved people. So she was like a socialite, an influencer. She was like an evil Kim Kardashian, except she did not like all right. She so she was definitely, like I said, well known for the way that she treated the people that were enslaved. There was the most infamous incident that made her actions public was one day there was a little girl named Leah. She's like 8 years old, and she's brushing LaLaurie's hair as she's supposed to do. She must have hit a snag or something like that. LaLaurie freaks out, chases her all around the gallery up here, to the point that she's terrified and pushes her over the edge. This little girl dies, and everybody on the block sees it happen. So there's no way for her to get out of this. She has to be punished. She has to pay a fine of $300. Okay, compared, like I told you that she's worth $20 million. She has to pay $300, and she needs to sell back 7 to 9 of her slaves, which she bought back immediately. Okay. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't, she basically suffers no consequences. The thing is, in this time in Louisiana, there's something called the Code Noir, which is a law which makes a lot of people think that in Louisiana it was a kinder form of slavery or something like that, because you are not under Code Noir allowed to torture, maim, harm any of your slaves. Great, wonderful. There is a person called an overseer that you hire to do those things for you. So you get to say, oh, he's such a bad guy. I would never do that myself. So, LaLaurie, like I said, socialite. Throws all these wonderful, wonderful parties. Everybody's coming in and out. One night she has a great party. Everyone's all, everybody on the street is happy, excited. All of a sudden, the place starts to burst into flame. All right? We mentioned earlier that cops in New Orleans are not always on their game. Firefighters in New Orleans, always on their game. We love the firefighters. Show up immediately, rush into the building, and they find an enslaved woman with her foot shackled to a kitchen stove. She says, I started the fire, take me in, arrest me, it's a penalty of death. for arson at this time. Okay, I don't care. What I want is to never ever go back up into that room upstairs that you guys all need to go check out right now. Okay, and so this is going to be the really gross stuff that if you need to cover your ears or step away for a second, I don't judge you whatsoever. Okay, so they go in, they bust into this room, and it is a charnel house torture chamber essentially. Okay, so she's got these slaves in these various ways of torture. One of them, they have men with a shackle around their neck. It's got spikes pointing into it. That's chained up to the ceiling, so they have to stand on their tiptoes. And if they want to rest by putting their feet fully down, it will choke them to death with the spikes in their neck. It's for if you were too lazy. There's also somebody who's had something done to him called Derby's Dose. Derby's Dose is something that was created by this horrible overseer named Thomas Thistlewood. This man published 37 diaries full of the various ways that he had come up with to torture slaves, all right? And Derby's Dose is named after the first man that he did this to, a slave named Derby, where they take feces, stuff it into your mouth, and stitch your mouth closed for if you're talking too much crap, okay? Finally, there's the woman that we call the grab woman, who, as I mentioned earlier, Delphine's husband's a doctor. There's books that he was into human experimentation, and this woman.
Yeah, I had to cut because I couldn't film the whole thing. But her name is Toby, and she's from the French Quarter Phantoms. Goes tour down there, and that was her first night.
Well, she's fantastic.
She's good.
She's animated.
Yeah, and it was funny because we talked along the tour because they were kind enough to let me film. So,
what about this one, Blaine?
Play it. That's part. It's not. It's close to LaLaurie. I'll see what she says. These are pretty good.
Of the notorious French alchemist, the Count or the Comte de Saint Germain. Now, have you ever heard of this guy, the Count Saint Germain?
Yes.
All people have. If you were born in Western Europe, he'd be one of your kind of Paul Bunyan folklore type characters, a little more well known over there, but starting to make his way over here a little bit more. He's like a character in the Castlevania anime TV show, like a wizard, you know. But he's this famous sort of folklore character. But men have appeared throughout history claiming to be this guy. So these men are real. They do exist. They're well documented. They always claim two things. They say they're an alchemist. So that means you have the secret of eternal youth. Harry Potter didn't make that up. And you can transmute metals, lead into gold being the most useful. And they're a prophet or an oracle. Tell the future. So one of the most famous appearances of a man claiming to be the Count was in Germany in the 1920s. Guy shows up, says, "I'm the famous Count Saint Germain. I have two predictions for this generation. Within 10 years, everyone in Germany here is going to be a millionaire." So that. And then shortly after that, a great evil will arise out of this nation that changes the fate of the world forever. So we all get Nazi Germany, obviously. Anyone know why the millionaire thing was true? It actually was. Right before World War II, they experienced called hyperinflation. It cost millions of Reichmarks to buy bread. Everybody was a millionaire. Everybody was dirt poor. So money, numbers are just numbers, right? So the most famous appearance of the Count, arguably the best documented and arguably the first, although some people will trace back even further, was the court of King Louis XV in France in the 1750s. So the Count of Saint Germain is a real courtier at this court. He's a real person. At the court, he was Louis' ambassador to Amsterdam for a while. He was known as a Renaissance man. He spoke 4 or 5 languages. He was a scholar, what they call a naturalist, a scientist, a philosopher. He was a violin composer. You could find some of this guy's violin pieces.
Cutting off now.
All right.
Yeah. Well,
So that's
Luke.
amazing.
He's the one that owns the company for Newton for French Quarter Phantom Tours. He is such a cool guy. Him and his whole staff were just amazing, and they try to keep it as factual as they can. So they did. They had done a lot of research on what they're going to talk about, and they were very good at what they did. And their tour, if you guys are ever down in New Orleans, please, it's worth the $22 take the vampire and ghost tour. It is amazing. And one of the cool things about it, it's about halfway through, they take you to another bar and you can get a beverage, or you go to the bathroom or get a beverage too. So we sit there and went to the bathroom, got us another beverage, and did the rest of the tour.
That's nice.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
All right, Thomas, blow our minds. I know it's that time.
Yeah. So probably the biggest thing I talked about earlier about Tori, but if you go back in time, you know, we talk about serial killers on all these episodes or murderers or anything like that. You know, back in the day, people didn't know how to label it. They didn't know what it was. You know, people are dying. Why are these people dying in succession? So that's where a lot of our lore comes from. The werewolf, the vampire. They're putting a name to a human who's an actual monster, and they're making up these titles for him. Oh, it must have been a werewolf or somebody, how these things pass from years to years. We know better now because it's the human part of it. But back then, you know, people didn't know what to make of it. So they, you know, they don't have like we have now the TV and internet and all that. So people, like, their minds were more creative, and you put together, oh, it's a werewolf, it's a vampire, it's a monster of some sort, and that's where a lot of the lore comes from. So when you hear about that type of stuff in novels, it's based off of serial killers. So
Yeah,
that's
you're
where it
right.
all comes from.
And one of the things too, one of the original stories of a werewolf was a serial killer in Germany.
Yeah.
That he actually had a wolf skin over him.
Mm-hmm.
He had the head and everything. So people thought it was a wolf with a man's face. So, you know, like you said, they didn't have the education to know, but he probably killed at least 35 to 40 people.
Yeah.
He'd just take them out of their house in the villages. And the people were so scared that they thought the wolf was going to get them. They never tried to stop. When they finally caught him, they caught him in the act. And about 15 townspeople beat the living Jesus out of him.
Yeah. So that's that's crazy. What was the modern day serial killer that the mob like caught him? They recognized him.
Ramirez.
Ramirez, yeah, and they beat the crap out of him
They
too.
beat the tar out of him.
Oh, they beat the bricks
thing.
off that boy.
Yeah.
He was happy to see the cops.
Yeah.
Take
me, they're gonna get me.
Please take me. When he got to the police station after they took him to the hospital, this dude had like 2 black eyes, nose all broken, crooked.
Well, that's what happens when you.
Scars.
That's what happens when you mess around in East LA, my friend.
No shit.
Yeah.
Mess around and find out.
I'm surprised the
Yes,
cops
it did.
didn't stop them. Didn't let them go and finish the job.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because you talk about the wolf guy, he put the skin on, he became the wolf.
Yep.
It's the same thing with Ed Gein. He made the skin suits, he put the skin suit on to become his mother and all that. It's just these psychoses. Yep. These go back from the beginning of time. This isn't something new. Yeah, we call it serial killer as of the 70s, you know, with
when
the
the term
behavioral
came
science.
out,
It goes way back. It isn't anything new. And I know we talk about H.H. Holmes as being one of the first, you know, documented serial killers. You know, you go back to the Hart brothers, you know, they were just after the Civil War. They killed more people. They were actually more of, you know, the first documented, I think. But yeah, of course, there was more in the history of our country.
Oh, yeah.
But that was way before H.H. Holmes.
Well, you got to figure at one time they called them mass murderers.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
Yeah, they didn't know. And there's still time in between. So as we define it nowadays. But yeah. They were like Hart brothers are like, you know, little like pirates and all that.
Yeah.
Just highway type of men that would take people out. So yeah.
Well, you know, it's no worse than Quantrill's Raiders after the Civil War.
Yeah.
They were picking off Union soldiers left and right.
Yep.
And it took them almost 5 years after the war was over to finally catch all of Quantrill's people.
Wow.
And two of
Yeah.
them were Jesse and Frank James.
Wow.
Yep. Juan
This,
Trail.
So-
this is our history. This is the history of our country.
Yep.
These types of things that happen and the energy that's left there that turns things supernatural. You know, it is amazing. And I love, you know, that I get to talk about all this stuff with you guys and everybody watching. You know,
Yes.
this is a type of series that could go on and on. There's so much different stuff
Oh,
that'll
my God.
blow your mind. You
So
know,
listen to this. This is what the doctor said when the judge is standing there and the house is on fire. And he said, "We are busting in." Okay. This is what Dr. LaLaurie said when the judge wanted to break into the home during the fire. "Some people had better stay at home rather than come to others' homes to dictate laws and meddle with it."
What?
I copied and pasted that out of the history.com.
No doubt.
People had better stay home rather than come to other people's houses
Well, that's
to
what I think.
dictate and meddle with it.
I think that's the first time he grew his man parts. I really do.
Well,
I
true.
think so too,
well, I
because
don't
he-
know. I really, if you look at it, you know, he was younger than Delphine and all that. And the other two husbands she had enslaved people before,
Sure.
but there was no talk of her doing anything to them or anything coming out after. But
Maybe she hid it.
once
that long.
once she got married to LaLaurie, living in that mansion that they had and the enslaved people, her and LaLaurie near that end didn't have a good relationship. There was something going on. And I think that made her switch in her head where she felt like she didn't have control anymore and all that. And I think that created the twist for her to do what she did, or him helping. He might have been helping the whole time.
He might have been
Well,
right in the middle
now
of it.
here's the thought. She was living in the Spanish American provinces,
Yeah.
you know, in Louisiana, because she was born there in that area. European Creole, basically, is what they call it.
Right.
And her uncle by marriage was Esteban Rodriguez Miro, who was governor of the Spanish America provinces of Louisiana and Florida during it was like 1780 to 1791. Then her cousin was Augustin de McCarty and was mayor of New Orleans. So she was up there, but she had a whole different culture. But she was only 4 when the Haitian Revolution came out in 1791, and that made slaveholders in the southern United States and the Caribbean, they were very afraid of resistance and rebellion among the enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered if that kicked it off.
It could have. I think that was
trigger?
before, you know, her marriage is going down the hill.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a contributing factor. You're right on that. You know, when you think about people,
I mean,
what
I'm
makes
just
them
drawing
lose their
straws.
mind.
No,
You know, I'm just
well, you know,
trying.
it's funny too. Makes me wonder, did she catch him cheating with other women? And so she took it out on mainly on the male slaves, but also females because he cheated with another female. I mean, that just makes logical sense. And that could snap a
It
person
could have
like
been
crazy.
some of the enslaved people.
Y'all know as well as I do. Bitches be crazy when they get cheated on, man. I
We
swear.
do be crazy.
Yeah.
That don't fly at all.
Well, they did say they had the young enslaved girl you said was, you know, Milano.
Mhm.
And the one that jumped off the roof. You know, hey, everybody there, maybe he had a love child and that was the one. And
That's what I was saying. Maybe that some of the women she tortured.
She kept her close. The one that brushed her hair, saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to keep her close. Once she messes up, I'm
She's
going to
done.
beat her."
And dude, and that was so
Mhm.
typical of that day because slave owners always had relations with their female
But
slaves.
Thomas Jefferson, there's
Jefferson, yeah.
his DNA is still out there with,
Oh yeah.
you know,
And so,
yeah.
like
We
you
don't
said,
know.
dude,
That's
that
the
makes
part of
sense.
history you don't
Because
hear.
that's why she kept her close to the vest. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're gonna have some little half-breed child in my house? Okay,
Yeah.
let her do something wrong. Then she's
Well,
mine. I mean,
You know, one of her daughters had a spinal problem.
yeah.
And Dr. LaLaurie was advertising in the newspaper that he could fix spinal problems.
Yeah. Well, that's how they
So
met.
that's how they met up. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I got to do this, y'all. I'm just
Do it.
going to try.
Do it.
This is
Do it.
hilarious. Here we
Do it.
go.
Do it.
All right. So Delphine married Don Ramon de Lopez y Aguilo Caballera de la Real and Carlos.
Oh, that's
Okay.
a long family history.
That's a lot. Yep.
And
Which is just
he was a
another-
high-ranking
another man.
Spanish royal official.
Hmm.
Ah,
Okay, and he ended up
Sounds like
passing
Game of
away.
Thrones with all the names.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
really.
that
Yeah.
one was rough. I just had to try. I know I did not
you
do
did,
well.
No, you did
No, you
very
did good.
well.
Okay, then she married a French guy. Okay, his name is Jean Blanque, Blanque, Blanc.
Blanc, which
Yeah.
means white.
And
Sounds good.
he
Yeah,
was
this
a
is-
banker, a merchant, a lawyer, and a legislator.
Ah,
So again, with the prominence, of course, she had her own, she was part of that. He died in 1816. So here comes Leonard Louis Nicolas LaLaurie. And then the Madame LaLaurie was born.
yeah.
Mhm. And he was a lot younger.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
he was.
But at the time that she met him, her finances had gone down. She's single with 5 children. And I think 4 of the children, one of the child was back, I think, over in Paris or something. But they said, the doctor brought in like $6,000, which seems a little, but back then was a lot. And she only had about $30,000 that brought into the relationship. So it had to grow from there. But yeah.
Well, now here's another stressor, Tom.
Yep.
Y'all. I always put Tom on the spot with this kind of stuff. I'm sorry.
That's what I'm here for.
Put
All
me on
right,
the spot,
so
too.
here it
Okay.
is. All right, so Delphine said that Dr. LaLaurie, she's got separated in November 16 of 1832 from Dr. LaLaurie because she said that he treated her in such a manner as to render their living together unsupportable. And her son and 2 daughters by Jean Blanc confirmed it.
So
She
that
was
is
tired
the
of his
stressor.
stolen ways.
Well, just
Okay.
so you know, when the house was on fire, they were separated. He wasn't really living there. For some reason, he was at the home at the time. So that's part of the story. What's the significance and all that? I really think we're onto something. I think he had relations unlivable.
Oh, yeah.
He was having relations with, and she
Yeah,
was
he was.
the only way to
holy.
get back at him, because at the time, even though she was, high up in society, it's that male female thing, which is stupid, but that dominance and all that, which shouldn't have been. She felt like she probably needed to take it out on the enslaved people, and that just made her lose her freaking mind.
Yeah. Well, what's
I
funny,
think that's
Tony,
it.
It's that
is
catalyst.
she
You already
left
have
him.
that psychosis there, the catalyst, like we talk about, that makes
Right.
somebody go from traumatic to serial killer. So
Well, this is the funny part too, is they had all those problems, but she went to Paris with him and lived out her life until she died with him.
Yep.
Go figure that one.
Well, I
Partners in
think that
crime?
he created it. He made it, so he had to own it, I guess.
Yeah, but y'all know most women like that have been cheated on so many times, they're not going to go with somebody that's cheated on them.
Yeah.
Unless they're,
You know?
unless it's one of those things. It's like, well, she was so in love with him that she forgave him and blah, blah, blah.
no, I think back then, because of her high society, after 2 marriages and all that, but I think the other 2 passed away.
They did.
There wasn't anything divorced. I think for her, it would have made her seem weak in society.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think that's why
Okay.
she kept it. It's almost like nowadays, look at it this way. It's almost the same thing. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. All the stuff that Bill Clinton did and
Sure.
Hillary stayed
I'm with
him.
you.
For
I'm with
political
you.
reasons, they didn't want to make it look, they want to put a strong front up and all that. If I were her, I'd get rid of them, but that's
okay.
not for
Let me
me
tell
to
you,
say.
this is my theory on that.
Yeah.
I think that her and Bill shared women, but that's just my theory.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it is how they appear. They
Oh,
think
yeah,
if
that
they
is
get
all public
divorced,
image.
they're both going to appear weak, and that takes
Yeah.
them out of the political arena. So I think it's the same thing with society. It just makes you look weak, like you didn't have the ability to control the situation.
Stronger together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, Yep.
Well, We're
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
end already. Dang.
Y'all, that's where did it go?
Because
I
this
know.
is such a cool subject
Yeah.
Yeah.
that I hope our audience enjoyed this. And
I think
apologize.
that one
for
batted
this.
out of the park, man.
Good.
It was fun. We hit everything, the history,
Yeah.
just your trip, Blaine, just everything, the psychology behind it, and just how
Well,
people think and the
well,
lore.
the recipe here, Tom,
Yeah.
is perfect for a haunting
Oh,
because
God,
they turned the house into a girls' school.
Yeah.
And those poor girls were coming out of the house, bruises, scratches all over them, and they would hear screaming and they would hear moaning and things like that. So,
What they would also hear in the house too is everybody's in the house and they'd hear chains rattling.
yeah, chains rattling.
They would hear audible screams.
That makes
And
sense.
they would sometimes find blood spots on the floor that nobody been cut or nothing, just appear out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And
It's
then
almost
Well,
it's almost like a time slip you're
yeah,
seeing.
it was,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
Mm.
But even with the Leah girl, people have said they saw the 12-year-old girl.
A lot of people have seen her
Yeah.
even recently.
But it's crazy because you don't know when somebody jumps off a roof. I was driving on the highway one time, and as I'm driving, there's a bridge overpass, and I saw a white mist
oh, we did too.
jump off
Mhm.
the
I have
bridge.
too. I have
Like
too.
it was committing suicide. It was showing me its
Yeah.
trauma, because it knew that I could see, and it wanted to show me like almost like a help me kind of thing. And it keeps repeating its suicide over and over again for somebody to see.
Yeah.
So,
And
and I
we've
think that's why a
all
lot of people see the Leah because
Yeah.
she committed so she didn't have to be with that trauma. And it holds you there, and it's sad. And I would love to go down there and be able to, all of us, just us together in our energy to commune with
Oh
them
my God.
to help
That
them
would
make
be
that
awesome.
decision if they want to be there anymore or not. To
Y'all, we'd have to
we
go
would
take
by.
the chains off,
we don't even have to be in the house. We can stand outside of the house,
Yeah.
do our whole thing there. Because the whole time I was watching the house when we were there.
Yeah.
Up
It
in
had to
one
have
of
been
the-
calling out. It
Oh,
had to have
oh,
been.
it was screaming.
Yeah.
And I was hearing the chains. I was seeing the visions of the enslaved, how they were just tortured. And that's just standing outside. Now, if the gentleman that owns it now does turn it into a bed and breakfast, we are going to find out how much it costs, and we're renting the place, and we're going to stay
That'd be
there
awesome.
and do a hellacious investigation.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
it's hard.
don't
It's
know if
hard
you
because
know.
you guys know I help the living and the dead. All
Yes,
right.
we do.
Yes.
I help people pass on. But a lot of these locations, they find out about me and they don't want me to come. They refuse to have me there because it's money for them. If I help spirits pass on, which not all of them want to leave, the
No,
place is
but
always going to be haunted. And that's the thing that effing pisses me off is if they call my name, they want to go. It's not up to you
well, let me tell you
with
a
your
little secret,
money
Thomas.
to make them stay. You're enslaving just like Madame LaLaurie did.
Let me tell you a little something though, Thomas.
Yeah.
There's different levels to their procedures. Okay, once that they are crossed, they'll go through the other ones they have to, but they can come back to any time period, including right before you exile them.
Yeah.
The only thing they can't go back to is the living flesh body they came out of.
Yeah.
But you're never going to get them out of
That's
the
what
place.
these people that own these haunts don't understand. You try and tell them like, if you get rid of all my spirits, I'm not going to be able to make any, screw you, buddy.
Let me tell you something.
I've had to sign waivers, documents that I would not cross spirits.
Well, here's the little thing though, is that place has been historically, that land itself, it's got several Native American spirits, it's got Spanish spirits, French spirits, all kind of spirits, and it is rumored that the Axeman of New Orleans actually took a couple of the heads he cut off and put them in that that property. So,
well, if the Axeman buried people there, what do you got to play? Some jazz? Play some
Yes.
jazz.
Yes.
He won't come to your house.
He'll go there. No, I think he took
Um,
one of the heads and buried it on the property.
Yeah.
Speaking of vampires, are you familiar with the author Anne Rice?
Oh
Yes,
God,
she
yeah.
was.
Okay, those
she
of
lived
you
down there.
watching, Anne Rice she wrote books about vampires. Her son had a blood disorder and had to have blood transfusions. He did pass away. Well, she was just distraught, and her bottle of red wine and her tears, staying home with her son, is what created these vampire, the
Interview with
vampire
the vampire.
Lestat and the Queen of the Damned and Lasher and all of those books.
Yep.
And she owned the LaLaurie house
She did.
and lost it.
She still has
And
a house in New Orleans, but she does not live
What's
in
the other book she wrote? Like besides Banner, she did the Wayfair Witches or
Wayfair
Yeah.
Wayfair
Witches.
Witches or something like
That
that.
is a TV series now.
Yeah,
Have you seen
watched
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's coming
she's
back on.
making a comeback. She
Wayfair
had
Witches.
a bad financial moment
Yeah.
after she had the LaLaurie house, just
Yeah.
like Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Cursed.
I hate to go, but I got to go. I want to spend some time with the wife. Thank you
Yeah.
guys
Bye,
for watching.
Blaine.
And
Thank you, Blaine.
we'll get together later and
We'll
discuss
figure out what
more.
we're gonna do next week.
That's it.
There you
Yeah.
go.
It's a good one.
We'll let
Bye.
you know.
Bye, y'all.
So tell us one more time about your con, and then we'll sign on out of here.
Oh
There you
yeah.
go.
So yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody knows it's gonna be it's always exciting, but adding the true crime to the paranormal and just how we talk today, how we were talking today, like on this episode.
Mhm.
It's so engaging, and there's going to be a lot of people at the Paracon talking. There'll be a good mix of true crime, paranormal, and how it all intertwines. There'll be a lot of vendors there with all different kinds of stuff. I do have very good friends that have paranormal stuff, but they also have true crime stuff. Like my friends, the Radicals, they have a fork confiscated from Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. And
Oh,
I
wow.
do know that he does have some dirt from the crawl space of John Wayne Gacy's house. So you're talking this true crime, like memorabilia and all those things that you could see and hear from people that know the history and all that. It's just going to be different. It's not your typical Paracon where it's all the same. It's going to be a lot different this year. And I hope a lot of people come because I don't think they want to miss out on this one because it's going to be amazing. July 12th and 13th coming up. And it's going to be in the center of Connecticut in the Brass City, which has a lot of haunted history too. We have an investigation coming up in a town right by part of Waterbury called Naugatuck. And it's going to be quite amazing. That's coming in February. So check out Thomas Patrick Gormley on Facebook, and you'll be able to click on that event, and it's going to be pretty amazing. So there's going to be a lot going on. I've done investigations at the Masonic Lodge there in Waterbury, so it's all intertwined, and that might be a possible an event too, added on top of the Paracon / True Crime Festival. So I'm pretty excited
So
about it.
nice.
Yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
going to be amazing. Yeah.
Thank you so much for tonight. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you very
as
much.
always, you can reach out to me, Gwen, or Tom, or Blaine, and let us know what you're thinking, what kind of questions you have, who you would like for us to cover.
Yes.
And, we're here for you. And may you have unpleasant dreams tonight. Not too much. I'm teasing. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Serial killers, supernatural, and murderers. Have a great night.